I'm Katy Wells, host of the Maximized Minimalist podcast. I escaped the hamster wheel of modern-day motherhood, overwhelmed by clutter and buried under the mental load. Now I live in a home that feels calm, manageable, and made for real life. I have margin in my days, energy for who matters most, and time for slow mornings and silly dance parties in the kitchen with my family. With over 5 million listens, the show has helped women around the world turn their homes into their happy place. Around here, we simplify for more peace, more presence, and more joy. We choose grace over guilt and progress over perfection. And we believe your home should give back more than it takes. I'm here to help you do the same. Come along with me and my guests as we share the real stories, habits, and strategies that help you lighten the load from the inside out. Pull up a seat, friend, and let's do this together. Ready, set, simplify. Hey friend, Katy here. Have you ever hit that 5 o'clock slump where everyone's hungry, nothing's prepped, and you're standing in front of the fridge thinking, do frozen waffles count as dinner? Yeah, me too. And if that's a regular scene in your house, this episode is going to be a game changer. We're talking about freezer meals that actually work for your life, for your time, in your real kitchen. My guest today is Nikita. She's been on the show many times, and let me tell you, she's not here to sell you on cooking for 4 to 5 hours every weekend. She's here to show you how to make freezer meals simpler, smarter, and dare I say, even fun. We're going to dive into what to freeze, what to skip, how to avoid the freezer burn mystery meals, which I certainly have made those mistakes, and how one simple habit can save hours of decision fatigue every single week. So if you're craving a little more peace around dinner and way fewer dishes, let's get into it. Nakita, welcome back to the Maximized Minimalist. Good to have you.
Hi, Katy. I am really excited to be back.
I am especially thrilled to talk to you because we are diving into something that I feel has so much potential for so many of my listeners, moms or not, because it just, if done right, if done well, if done strategic in all the ways you teach and that we're diving into today, it can save us so much time and so much stress and not hearing or not having to think like, what's for dinner when the clock strikes 5 and everyone's already starving and you're like, oh, I don't have a plan. That is priceless, not having to deal with so much of that stress. So before we dive into the, topic at hand, since you were on last, I've got a new tradition. We kick off all the episodes with my guests with the same question. And that is, if you could magically declutter one thing from your life forever, no effort required on your end, what would it be?
I guess it would be paperwork, even though following you and your challenges, I have it dialed down, but I just hate it. It's that one thing which I have to really push myself to actually do.
Okay. Yes. So Nikita, you did participate in the March challenge and we had so much fun, didn't we?
Yes,
in that 14-day
really
challenge.
Fun.
It was really cool. Yes, I loved having you in there and just seeing your before, afters, durings. And I remember you going through paperwork. I'm seeing the flashback of the photos you put up. It was so cool to see that.
The system's still working. So I must say, even though I hate it, I've got it down to a fine art now.
I get it. Some things just, even if you have the system in place, you're like, if I could just not ever have to do it, I totally get that. Yeah. But I'm so pleased to hear you're still doing it, even though you hate it. Hey, that's proof that the system works. So
exactly.
I love this.
And I think it's a good intro into what we're going to talk about today as well.
Yes.
I know that quite a few moms actually hate cooking, and it's okay.
Yeah, I think I've gotten better throughout the years, but that would also be me. So I'm having you on selfishly too. So take us back for a minute, because I know we have a lot of new listeners since you were on last. Take us back to the moment you realized something had to change in your evenings. What was it like before you started doing freezer meals? And like, was there an aha moment that started it all? Or was it just that like sheer frustration and I have to do something different? What did that look like?
Well, let me start by saying that I was stressed whichever way you looked at it. Like my home, my schedule, my cooking. It was just crazy. And I had a young family. I was working full time, still do, my husband as well. Busy schedules, school, homework and kids' extracurriculars. And this constant dread about like what to make for dinner. And I didn't exactly walk into it thinking like, oh yes, freezer meals will save my life. It didn't look like that at all. In fact, most moms don't. They do not instantly, think about, yes, I can freeze meals and that will save me time. I actually stumbled across freezer meals by accident because I had cooked lunches for my husband and I, and we were both invited to a work event. And I thought, okay, it's Friday. Let's try popping them into the freezer and see what will happen on Monday. Sunday night came about, and usually I'm preparing lunches again, like I did every single day. And it felt so amazing to open the freezer, take out our lunches and just put them in the fridge. I'm like, whoa, like lunch is ready. And I realized how freeing that felt. And that one small win, it just snowballed because it wasn't just a time saver. It just changed my whole relationship with making lunches and making dinners and family meals.
This is so I know you can't see Nikita, but when she shared that, when you said freeing, that word, which I love, I saw the physiological response in your body. We have all had those moments, even if you haven't done a freezer meal. Let's just say you pulled out a Trader Joe's freezer meal that you didn't make. It's just oh, I'm a winner today. This is easy and I'm making it easy on myself. But when you pull out a meal that you got done in advance, it is you feel like a queen. You feel unstoppable and you feel so excited. And I love how you're it just made me kind of crave more of that freedom. So, okay, so pull us back. So you started, you're hey, this was awesome. So pull the curtain back for us. What does your real life freezer prep routine look like? And has that changed? Because obviously your kids are a little bit older now. And how do you make it doable month after month? How are you consistent with it?
Well, in the beginning, I was pretty much trying to fit in a freezer prep session in 4 hours, which was crazy because I was so tired by the end of it. And I was there must be a better way to do this. So I came up with the system, which still works to date. And it's the system that we use inside the Freezer Meals Club, which is my membership and that I recommend to anyone and everyone who's listening as well, is to just make more of what you're making because that's way easier. So what I do is I cook once, but I make 2 or 3 portions. So 1 portion for the whole family will have for dinner, and the other 1 to 2 portions go into the freezer. So they're portioned, they're ready, they're labeled. I put them in the freezer, lay them flat to save space, and they're in there. And I don't give up, a Sunday or a Saturday afternoon to cook and meal prep and batch cook. And I don't even have a second freezer as well, because once you're using freezer bags and you're freezing flat, it can hold a lot, like a drawer can hold a lot of meals. And this is just built into my existing rhythm. I haven't really carved out any additional time. And it only takes a few minutes to just prep more of what you're making. I'm pretty smart with what I'm batch cooking. I wouldn't choose a recipe that requires half an hour of chopping, We have to be smart with our choices. Yeah, because it can get way overwhelming really quickly. But, if you have those recipes that that your family enjoys and that you can make practically with your eyes closed, most foods can be frozen. So you might as well, just make extra. And when next week rolls around and that there's a day when you're rushing around after work, you need to take the kids to the dentist and then to soccer practice, you can just come home and just heat up dinner and it's done.
I love this. And actually, you taught me this on one of our first episodes, maybe in 2019. Let's just say 6 years ago. Make more of what you're already making. Okay, this, all my listeners, has been a mantra in my head for 6 years. I live by it now. But I noticed over the years, I quit freezing as much. And I was okay, if I'm just doubling or tripling, then and my kids probably are tired of this, I'll just use those quote unquote leftovers for the rest of the week. So then we'll end up eating the same meal 3 or 4 nights in a row, which to me, I have no problem with. I could literally eat the same thing every day. I don't need a lot of flavors and different things. And my poor husband recently was Katy, are you noticing? Can we go back to freezing some meals and still mixing it up? So he will not double anything when he cooks. And that grinds my gears, but because I'm it's not efficient. If you're getting, again, I'm efficiency, but then he just likes it fresh. And ultimately I had to just not care, because if he wants to cook the meal, he can cook it fresh for us. But I love the system, and I love how it's not some It's not some like incredible thing to just make more of what you're doing, but it's the easiest low hanging fruit and a great place to start.
It is. And I totally get you. And I agree with you. Like if your husband is making a dinner, I just let him do whatever he wants. Dinner is done.
We don't, we're just grateful.
I'm so happy dinner's ready. So that's it. But I actually, there are a lot of, I hear this from a lot of women, like that their husbands or their partners, they're not into freezer meals because they think that they won't taste as fresh as, just making it and eating it.
Yes.
But usually that's linked to a bad, let's call it bad, freezing experience, because someone has made something, they haven't frozen it properly, or they haven't defrosted it properly, or reheated it properly even, and it may be watered down or soggy, or maybe it's not the right meal to freeze. And then, it just tastes off, or else you leave it in the freezer and it's not packed well and it develops freezer burn. And you get all those like icicles, the food starts changing color. Sometimes the flavor changes as well. And that's not a good way to, try freezer meals. So I completely get people who have been through that and they say, I won't eat freezer meals as well.
That's a good point. Looking back, I totally have a little mini PTSD from like freezer meals, in like the 90s, but it looks different now. It looks different. So speaking to like the proper techniques, are there ideal foods that are great for freezing? I know you said most can be frozen, or maybe foods that are like, hey, don't ever freeze this, or some equipment, tools. What do my listeners need to just get started with this?
Generally, if you avoid foods that have high water content, like lettuce, for example, is one food that I can think of that has a lot of water. If you avoid those, you're pretty much right where you need to be, because when food has a lot of water in it, it really changes dramatically because, you're freezing it and then you're defrosting it and it won't ever get the same texture. So that is definitely something that I would avoid. And even things with like crispy toppings. Okay, if you go to the supermarket, you'll find foods that are, like crispy toppings, but they're great, but they have been flash frozen and they have been pre-fried. We do not have this equipment at home. So I would avoid fried foods as well for the freezer. Fish as well, because it cooks so quickly and it just disintegrates when you are freezing and defrosting. And if you are freezing anything with a sauce, usually, or cooked meats, or raw marinated meats, or pasta, I would recommend that you bake it because then it holds up better as well, and to not overcook it. When you're looking at these dishes or pies and chilies and curries, you cannot really go wrong. I would avoid dairy as well, simply because it won't hold the same consistency. It will get like, it will, I can't, my brain is a bit, it's 6 p.m. here. I have told you that. So it's end of day for me, but the consistency will change completely. So that's not something that I would recommend as well. And the most important thing to do when you're freezing is to try and remove as much air as possible from your freezing container, which is why I love using freezer bags. And also to make sure that the food is fully cooled before freezing, because if it's even slightly warm and you put it in the freezer, you'll get condensation inside the freezer bag, and that will turn into icicles, which will start to spoil the food, not in terms of safety, but in terms of quality.
Because I struggled with that in the beginning. Like, I'm like, is it room temperature? Is it not? Like, I just put my hand near it. I'm like, it's good enough. And I certainly had my experience where I was like, oops, maybe not. So do you use a food thermometer, or do you just like say, hey, everything gets 2 hours to like cool? Is there like a time? How do you gauge that?
Well, to be on the safe side, I wouldn't leave anything out at room temperature for more than an hour. So what I usually
I messed up there. Maybe that explains my chronic gut issues. No, I'm kidding. This is why I'm not the one talking about freezer meals.
With an hour, you'll be fine. So what I like to do is, I even like to, like if I have a huge batch, because I love to use my slow cooker, for example, of bolognese sauce, I'll usually split it up so it can cool down faster. And then what I like to do, I move the food to the fridge for a couple of hours or even overnight, because then it's really cold. And if you've got a sauce, it also thickens, so it's easier to portion. So that's my little hack.
That is a great hack. So that makes sense. So it's like that transition period. And then when you wake up in the morning, you just shift it over to the freezer and dust your hands off. You're all good. Okay.
Even if you have a pie, for example, or a tart, it's easier to slice, and it doesn't, food just falls apart when it's hot or warm. But once you've moved it to the freezer, then it's easy.
So you've got 2 kids and a husband. Can they tell, like, when you started doing freezer meals, could they be like, oh, you reheated this, honey, didn't you? Because I know you mentioned, some of us have had bad experiences with like quality or freezer burn and this, that, and the other. But my guess is like when you're doing it properly with these techniques and, selecting specific recipes that tend to freeze better, that, like you said, the freshness, like all of that, the quality should be retained, right?
Yes. Well, I had quite the journey with freezer meals. I started freezing meals 17 years ago. So even online, there wasn't that much information.
Yeah.
So it was pretty much, test and see what happens. And there were a couple of meals which no one wanted to eat. And I ended up eating for my own lunches because I won't waste food. I absolutely hate it. So yes, in the beginning, there were those few, let's call them fails, but it's a learning process. And they used to realize, but now a fresh meal, freezer meal, they won't even realize. It's exactly the same.
Okay, so tell me about some of your family favorites. And I know you have clients from all over the world in your freezer meals club. Like, tell us about some of the meals that like are maybe that have been your go-to or their go-tos recently that are really great, like just great ways to get started.
Bolognese sauce is always my favorite. I know that you have tried it as well.
I love it. I love it. That's how I think that was the first one I made from you, actually. So yes, I'm so glad you said that.
It's a true winner because it's versatile as well. So you can make, like you mentioned, for example, that you had a meal and you put it in the fridge and you're eating the same thing every day. With bolognese, you can repurpose that and change it into sloppy joes, shepherd's pie, pies, lasagna, baked pasta with bolognese sauce, baked rice with bolognese sauce. So there's so much you can do with it. And it's easy to make and everyone loves it. Everyone loves it. I've never heard of anyone who, especially kids. Curry dishes as well are a real win. Pies, patties, which you can then make into burgers because it's so easy because you can buy like a bagged salad that's ready and you can buy the fresh bread and just burgers, and everyone's happy. Pasta sauces, marinated meats as well. Kebabs, like I make these chicken skewers and I freeze them. In fact, I just took a portion to the beach yesterday because in Malta we have extended summers. We're lucky. The weather is warm for most of the year. And we sat by the beach, by the sea on the beach, and we're eating a freezer meal. So it was ready. So yeah. Okay. But there's a lot you can do.
That sounds amazing. So for the kebab, tell us, so you freeze the raw kebab, right? Or are you freezing it cooked? Because you could do either, right?
Yeah, you can choose.
So you obviously cooked it in advance.
I cooked it and I cooled it and I froze it and then I defrosted it and I packed it with instant rice, basically. Like I just put the packet in the microwave and it was ready. The kebab had the vegetables and the chicken, so it was a full meal and dinner was done.
I am geeking out over here. I feel like my world just exploded because I never thought about doing kebabs and stuff like that. I've been sticking to, I think I'm the type of personality that once I get comfortable doing it one way or like a certain category, I don't tend to branch out because I'm not quite as confident in that department. So I've done like the easy stuff, like the easier ways to get started, like you talked about, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I could be doing so much more with freezer meals. Okay, this is getting me so excited. Okay, so let's talk consistency because by no means do I think you have to freezer meal every week in order for it to be effective. Anytime you do it, same with decluttering, it's going to move the needle. It's going to make you feel better. But of course, a lot of my listeners are those who like to have systems in place and, be more productive or efficient, continually versus just once in a while. So how are you? I know you mentioned like you're not carving out extra time. Is that really your secret to being consistent with it? If you're cooking anyway, you tack on 5-10 minutes, double, triple the recipe. I mean, is that really the secret?
Well, personally, I like to batch cook once a week. Batch cook. I mean, I pick a recipe and I double or I triple it. I have members who are doing it once every 2 weeks. And like you said, it's still effective because if you are freezing 2 meals every 2 weeks, that's 4 to 6 meals a month. So that means that you're not cooking for 4 to 6 nights every month. So it's still pretty effective. But what I see happening, we share one freezer meal per week inside the Freezer Meals Club. So people come in and they start dipping their toes in and they try a recipe, they freeze it, they see what it feels like to get it out of the freezer and have dinner done. And then they get so excited that they start experimenting and freezing breakfasts and lunches and dinners and snacks. And it just very quickly snowballs into something that becomes fun because it's so satisfying to find food ready in your freezer, just ready to be heated up.
Oh, so satisfying. Talk to me about some of the kind of standard things that are helpful for getting started. I know you mentioned freezer bags. It's important to get the air out because if you trap the air in, that's going to impact the freezer quality. What does that look like? So for all my listeners too, Nikita is in Malta, which is a small island off the coast of, I say Italy. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we're beneath Sicily, so
Beneath.
pretty close.
Okay, so I didn't know if it was technically opposite. Okay, she's not in the U.S. where she can just like run to the store anytime, and there's not Walmarts and Targets like necessarily where you are. So, what does that look like?
We have improved, thankfully, with online services and getting like food delivered pretty quickly. So I do know moms who leave it to the last minute and then get, stuff delivered, but it's still stressful. Because you have to make a plan. You have to place the order. You have to wait for your delivery, or else you're ordering takeout. And let's face it, takeout is fun if it's planned. But if you're doing it a couple of nights a week because you have no other way, you don't really feel good about that. And most of us feel like we're failing our families, unfortunately. And it's a pretty common feeling. So I do think that there's a lot of benefits to freezing meals and planning even just 1-2 meals a week. Yeah. For your busiest days, just plan for your busiest days. It's definitely helpful.
Like you said, the cost of eating out, like you said, it's fun. We typically plan those meals like kind of into the full picture, full budget but everything is so expensive. I can imagine even more expensive.
Yes.
Typically costs are more expensive on an island because you have to fly or boat everything in. I took my kids out for dinner, just the three of us the other day, and it was like $50 for 3 people and you had to tip. And I was like, what? I can't do it. I don't want to do this. So I think even still, whether it's eating out or not, it's so cost effective to be able to do this and to be able to reach into the freezer. So it just makes so much sense. You mentioned your kids being excited to like pop stuff out of the freezer and they're at an age where they can probably help themselves and thaw some stuff out. How do you see in your community and maybe you too at your house, like fun ways families are getting their kids involved in freezer prep? Like if they're a little bit older and can be a part of that process, what does that look like? And how can that help us as parents?
I do see some moms like who are eager to involve the kids in meal prep and freezing food and, just making dinner, but it's not the majority. The beautiful things about freezer meals is that once you have dinner prep out of the way, you've suddenly got free time. And then for those moms who would rather do something else than cook with their kids, you can just be with them and do whatever you want because dinner's sorted. It frees up your time for them. So ultimately, whether it's involving them in the cooking process, which can be fun, then some moms would rather, get a free hour a day and head, out for a hike or do some crafts instead.
I hear you. My kids just, so this last summer, they did a cooking camp here locally in North Carolina. And I've been inviting them into the kitchen more as they've gotten older. So they're 9 and 10. The cooking camp, it was really cool. I was curious because I'm like, they're not learning from me and I'm no master chef. Everyone knows this. But to see them, like they rated that camp just as high as their rock climbing and biking camp. And I was not expecting that. And they're like begging to go back next year. And one of the reasons I'm certain that they felt excited about it is because they dabbled with me in the kitchen. But what I learned, I think from talking with you throughout the years, and another guest I had on the show once, Katy Kimball, who's really, really great, is that we feel pressure to like invite our kids in and help us meal prep and do all these things. But when we are like trying to scramble quickly to get food on the table and they're crying and whining and everyone's hungry, that's not the time to do it. If you have a Saturday and it's kind of like baseball's done early and it's like, hey, let's cook together. That is the time where you're not rushing and you're not stressed to invite them into it because you're going to have more fun. There's not this deadline. And I started to do that just maybe once or twice a month when they were like 6, 7, 8. So just a couple of years of that on occasion, no stress environment. It really so they have good feelings about the kitchen, right? Because they're not like, Mom forced me in and then screamed at me the whole time because I was making a mess. So it's really cool to see that. So I want to offer that to anyone who's like, oh, I gotta, you don't need to invite your kid, but if the timing is right and you don't have that pressure to get food on the table in 10 minutes, those are great opportunities to have them practice knife skills, wash the produce. I mean, there are so many different ways we can do that. So it's been really cool to, be in your freezer club community and see people do that here and there, because I fully believe just like clutter isn't a mom or a dad problem. It's a whole family. Like, hey, this is our home. It's our responsibility to do this. Same for meals. And I know everyone has different opinions on that. I also don't like cooking. So it's easy for me to say, like, we're in this together. Y'all need to help. But it really is a life skill. So it's been cool to like pass along some of the things I've learned from you and teach my kids at such a young age, even though they might not be doing it, extensively till they're older and out of the house. They've gained so much confidence, Nikita. Truly. I'm like, dang, they're more confident than me in the kitchen. They are.
That's amazing because they're still so young. So imagine in a couple of years' time, I think you'll be enjoying a couple of nice dinners, Katy.
That's the plan. It's all for selfish reasons. No. Okay. So for the listener who's thinking, okay, I know myself and I know unless someone if someone hands me the plan every week or every 2 weeks, however often I want to do and start freezer meal planning and making these, like I'm off to the races. I'm good to go if I just, don't have any decision fatigue around it. And then there's the people who are like, oh, without that, like there's no way in heck I'm going to get started or try it or stick with it. So talk to us about your Freezer Meals Club. I've, been a member since its inception, and talk to my listeners and us about that opportunity because I think it's such a great service you do. And I love how it's just so simplified. And I've certainly just popped into your Facebook group when I'm like, okay, got 5 minutes to meal plan before I go to the grocery store and grab some of your meals. And they've been fantastic. So talk to us about what they can expect from that.
Well, my members just love it. You can see from the Facebook group because, like I said, I give them one recipe per week, but they're just so excited to just freeze different meals and everyone's sharing photos and help in the group. It's an easy system because I really help moms simplify batch cooking because they are just at maximum. They are batch cooking one recipe per week. It may not even be every week, but you have a nice collection of recipes and you can pick and choose and see what you want to make that suits your family. So there's no full day prep marathons required. It's just a couple of extra minutes a week. Every week we share this recipe that serves 12 plus. So you've definitely got a nice batch and you don't have to figure it all out because you get all the details, black on white, the exact freezing instructions for each different recipe, defrosting instructions, reheating instructions, side dish suggestions, even where you need the side dish. And we also give them what we call remix recipes. So you can take that one dish and you can evolve it to create different dishes as well. So you're not serving different meals every week if you're taking out one freezer meal per week. And the best part is that there's a community of moms who are doing it alongside you, and just seeing others win at making freezer meals is so motivating. It's just fantastic. I can see members, getting results because they're just cooking a couple of nights a week because dinner has been frozen and it's ready to serve. And I see others that have like 20 plus meals bagged up inside their freezer. And almost all of them, they say the same thing. They say like, I finally feel on top of dinner, and the unexpected benefits. It's not just saving time, but it goes beyond that. It's the ease. And you feel so light, and that burden has just been lifted off you.
I must have been in your community. I saw someone share I feel like there's always a sport, especially as your kids get older, but her son had like a particular activity and she was always, they'd get home late, 6:30, everyone's hungry. It was always stressful. And she joined your community and she was like, I don't have the stress anymore of making dinner. Or often what they did, she said, was they just did takeout because like you hit a certain point where it's like you need food fast, right? And she was like, I save so much money, hundreds of dollars a month, and it's really not taking any extra effort or time out of my day. It's just a little more intention of planning and like, hey, I need to thaw this out because we have a baseball game that'll run late tonight. And you could like see, like you said, ease and the excitement. And she also like sitting down at the dinner after baseball, like she heats the food up. It's good in 5 minutes. And she's like, now it's like, we also enjoy each other's company at dinner. So it's like, you think about mom, caregivers tend to set the tone in the home. And when we're not going into dinner with such a frazzle and stress, like we can actually be like, hey, you did great at baseball, or, connect a little bit more, which is what a lot of us, I think, crave anyway. So again, it's like all these unexpected benefits and how that changes how they show up with their kids or their partners, or like how they feel better going to bed at night because they're not still so upset about dinner or how that went. It's really cool. It's been really cool to be a part of that community. And I think it's really, really powerful. And it's been certainly inspiring for me to dabble more and more in it and get more proficient at it. But just like you said, you can customize it. You don't have to cook one meal a week. You can do one every other week. And some people stockpile 20 meals. Some do, a simplified version of that. So making it work for yourself. And your A to Z plan also has been awesome. For someone, again, I am that person who it's like, if it's not clear as day and it's not handed to me, I probably won't do it. I know myself. So it's just been incredible. I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah. Thank you. The whole idea is to make it easy for everyone because that's what us moms need, right? Ease.
We need ease.
So yeah, that's what it's all about. It's a monthly membership, which I haven't mentioned. So basically, our members pay $18 a month to be a member inside of the Freezer Meals Club. But we have a special offer for your community. Doors are open until Saturday, the 18th of October. And then we won't reopen again before 2026. So this is like the ideal time to get in and get prepped before the busy end of year season as well. So if your listeners use the code Katy at checkout, then they can get a 20% off the membership, which brings it down to $14.40. That's like less than the price of a pizza, right?
That's insane. Yeah.
You'll get the membership with all the content delivered to you every week. Plus, we go beyond that as well, because I haven't mentioned that once a month, I create a resource based on what our members need. So, for example, we had one mom who couldn't just figure out how to put all of this into a system. So I created a calendar, which you can just import into your Google Calendar. And you get all of these reminders, like when to batch cook, when to freeze, when to defrost, when to shop, everything. And obviously you can move them around to make it your own. So just one button, move around the calendar of events, and then they're recurring, so they'll come up again. And I also made a print version for people who are planning with their paper planner. So things like these, someone says, hey, I need this, and I'll create that because it makes life so much easier. We have like a freezer meal scaling sheet because we had some families who wanted to eat bigger portions. So you just plug in the main ingredient and the quantity that you want, and it just changes the ingredients for the full recipe. So even when you join, you will get access to all of these incredible resources as well.
This just goes to show I'm only tapping the surface with some of the stuff. I need to dig deeper. I love this. This is like, that sounds so exciting to me, like automated reminders that I just take 30 seconds and tee up my week, like thaw this out. Okay, I'm diving back in. Like the second I stop recording, I'm going back into the members area because this is really making my day. Nikita, any final words for any of my listeners out there? Again, it's October. We're a lot of us are settled back into the school routine. So I think that tends to bring a sense of like being ready for a system like this, but maybe they're overwhelmed or not sure. I've tried in the past and freezer burn their food or something like I had in the past. What words of advice do you have for someone who's interested in getting started?
Well, first of all, I just want to give a word of encouragement to those moms who think that they're doing it wrong, because let's face it, dinner is hard. It's never ending. We have to do it every day. It's not exactly easy, but it really does get easier when you start, making that extra meal so that you're not making dinner every night and you're not expected to win every night as well, because you put so much pressure on ourselves. We have to feed the family every day. It needs to be homemade. It needs to be healthy. Like, we need to take some pressure off ourselves, and the freezing meals is a great way to do that. And you do not need to plan any 4-hour batching sessions, but just make a small portion of something that that your kids enjoy and see how it turns out. That's the magic in it. When you pull that freezer meal out and you try it and you're like, yes, this is a great meal to freeze.
It's like you get that dopamine hit. Like when you buy something, I think you get that same dopamine hit. Like, dang, I'm a rock star. Like I'm like crushing it at life. In those moments, it feels so, so good and so compelling. And it certainly saved me and all my community members who I know are part of your community as well, just sing your praises. So thanks for coming on and sharing such practical gold with us all on freezer meals. I love your heart behind it. I love your community. And for all my listeners who are interested in checking out the Freezer Meals Club, open just for a short time, but you can use Katy, my name, Katy, for 20% off. That's for a lifetime. So as long as you want to be in, you can dip in for a month, but I don't know one person who's only been in for a month because they just get so much value out of it. So go check that out. The link in the show notes. And Nikita, thank you so much.
Thank you, Katy. It was really fun. And I really hope that we'll get to help a couple of moms as well.
Yes.
Get them to start freezing some meals.
We're doing it. Simplification all the way. So thank you.
Thank you.